Today we are pleased to have with us Dr. Nora Lozano, who is a friend to Central and also one of our Doctor of Ministry faculty members that started in 2021 teaching with us. And so I'm glad to welcome you, Nora. Nora was born in Mexico. She serves as executive director and co-founder of the Christian Latina Leadership Institute, which is a nonprofit organization devoted to the discovery, development, nurturance, and empowerment of women leaders from a Latina perspective. And it is intended to be transformational for them, to transform churches and transform communities. And as one who has watched CLLI from sometimes close up and sometimes from a distance, I think that is a very accurate description. It is a transformational nonprofit organization. Nora received her PhD and her Master of Philosophy in Religious and Theological Studies at Drew University in Madison, New Jersey, and a Master of Divinity at Eastern Baptist Theological Seminary, which is now Palmer, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and a BA in Social Communications from her university in Monterrey, Mexico. In addition, I did not know this about you, that Nora holds a Doctor of Divinity, an honorary degree from John Leland Center for Theological Studies in Arlington, Virginia. Mm-hmm. So congratulations on that. I didn't know that was true. So
thank you.
And this is the hard part for me to believe of your bio. You have been in theological education for more than 25 years,
mm-hmm.
serving as a professor of theological studies at Baptist University of the Americas, where your interests, Nora, have been in areas of systematic Hispanic, Latin American, and women's theologies,
mm-hmm.
as well as leadership studies. So as one who has read some of her writings, you can find essays, chapters in books, chapters in encyclopedias and articles, as well as Bible studies. And in addition, is written for Baptist News Global and Baptist Standard and Good Faith Media and Christianity Today. One of the things that I knew first about Nora was that she was connected with the Baptist World Alliance and served on their Commission for Doctrine and Christian Unity. And so has had opportunity to do some traveling and make good connections with Baptists around the world. But she's an active member of Woodland Baptist Church in San Antonio, Texas, where she lives with her family.
Mm-hmm.
And I will just say on a personal note, Nora and I have been friends. I always try to think of that first time I met her, but it's been so long now that I don't even remember, but 10, 12 years, sometimes I lose count. But Nora has been a good friend, mentor, coach, partner with me in many adventures, and I'm so grateful for her. And today she will be leading our Lunch and Learns on the topic of the joys and challenges of a multicultural world. Certainly here at Central, we live in a multicultural world, and I think this will be a great topic for us to explore. As Nora talks, if you want to type questions in the chat, if you're one of those people who needs to keep track of your questions, or if you want to write them down, we'll have some time for question and answer at the end. But be sure to track your questions and not forget the good ones. So we welcome all of you, and I'll turn this over to Nora.
Thank you. And I'm going to be sharing a presentation. So thank you, Pam, first for this introduction. And thank you to all of you who have joined. And I'm going to be sharing a presentation, so I will not have access to the chat right now. Pam, so I will ask you to monitor that. If there's a question that we need to get at that moment, let me know, okay? Because I cannot see that. Okay, so let's begin. I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation, and again, thank you for being here. Okay, let me put it in full screen. Okay, the joys and challenges of a multicultural world. As an introduction, I want to mention that it seems that the world has become smaller as we're exposed more and more to other cultures. Many years ago, it was very difficult to travel to other places. Before planes, it was so challenging to go by ship, basically by boat, to a new place. And many people stay in the same places, in the same place all their lives. Now, with new inventions, such as fast planes, now we can visit places and immerse ourselves in new cultures. And if we cannot do that, we can learn about cultures through the internet or TV shows, but we have access to learn about cultures. Another issue that may expose us to new cultures is the issue of migration. Due to political, economic, safety issues, military issues, millions and millions of people are migrating. For instance, from Latin America to United States, from Africa to Europe, from Asia, just going to go to India, Malaysia, Thailand, Australia, all these different places. So for all these reasons, today more than ever, we are exposed to different cultures. Now, cultures are very interesting, are diverse, are joyful and fun at times, but they are also challenging. They challenge our worldview. We're limited human beings. We need to remember that. So they challenge our worldview, our sense of stability and knowledge, because suddenly we are exposed to something different. And we have to accept that it is hard to navigate other cultures. And I want to invite you to see this piece of art. And John, I don't know if you know this artist, Do Ho Soo, and I hope I'm saying the name in the right way. He's from South Korea, okay? So he did this piece, okay? This is in the University of California, San Diego. So my daughter was working there. So I used to go often to California to visit her. And one day she said, you know what? This piece of art is open right now. Let's go and see it. So it is a beautiful campus, this, the University of California, San Diego. It has a lot of art around the whole school. So we went to see this piece by this South Korean artist, Do Ho Soo, and it's called Fallen Star. And the piece is this small house that is right here. So you see it and it's like, what is that doing there? Okay, that's the first question that you have. It seems that this small house just fell from the sky on top of the 7th floor of the Jacobs School of Engineering building. From the distance, the house presents a discordant panorama. So you are walking, and these pictures are mine, okay? And you see this house right there on the top, okay? So when we entered, so from the distance, as I was saying, it presents a discordant panorama. It looks like a misplaced piece unmatched with the rest of the building. In addition to this architectural dissonance, the house is tilted by 5 degrees, okay? So as you go up on an elevator, the house is tilted. So I'm here, and this has the right perspective where I'm sitting, but the house is tilted by 5 degrees, as I was saying. So as you enter the house, then you experience an imbalance, okay? And you must hold on to the doorknob or a piece of furniture in order to find some stability. The tour guide explained to us, okay, that this experience of being off balance is how the author felt when he came to the United States and when he came as an international student, okay? He said that every day he experienced this off-balance reality and had to reorient himself in order to survive in this new environment. The tour guide also highlighted that the only part in the whole house that is in balance, that is in balance, is the chandelier because of gravity. So as you are inside, it seems that the chandelier is crooked, but no, the chandelier is the one that gives you the right sense of reality. Okay. So he decided to name this one the fallen star, basically. And again, that's how he felt. Okay. He needed to survive. And as I was going through this whole experience, by the way, these are my kids, Andrea and Eric. As I was going through this whole experience, I thought, what is a chandelier for us as Christians that gives us some sense of balance? Okay. Well, what is that sense? Again, looking at the chandelier, you knew that was the right perspective because of gravity. Okay. So what is the right perspective for us as Christians? What is the chandelier that shows us the right angle? And I believe that the only chandelier that can give us light and provide us with the right angle of reality is the Holy Trinity. So this piece offers some wise strategies, as I was saying, and invites us to recognize the many things that make us experience reality in an unbalanced way. For us as Christians, it may be temptations that we may face related to power, control, money, possessions, or wrong, appropriate interpersonal relationships that may lead us into issues of sexism, racism, classism, all these things. So the chandelier is the commonalities that hold us together as human beings, okay? The chandelier for us may be what we find common in all cultures, our desire for peace, regardless of religion or country of origin, color of skin. We all desire peace. We want to have enough food to eat for us and our families. We want to have shelter, where to sleep. We want to have clean water. We want to have education for our kids and a hopeful future. Okay. So as we think about all this, how do we relate? We have these common issues, again, that are common for all human beings. We all want these things. So the Holy Trinity is the one who can help us, basically, to move in the right direction. The Holy Trinity is the one who will help us to fulfill our mission in a multicultural world. In addition, we need to be prepared and have as much knowledge as we can to navigate ministry in a multicultural world. It is wise to be as culturally intelligent. Now we know that all these different kind of intelligences are coming, emotional intelligence, cognitive intelligence, cultural intelligence, all these things. So it is wise to be as culturally intelligent as we can be in order to understand ourselves and others and to serve in a multicultural world, regardless of our ministry or call. If we're called to full-time ministry or, to be lay members of our church, the more that we can have this kind of intelligence, cultural intelligence, the better that we're going to be. Now, Tina Horst, in a book titled Dancing Between Cultures, mentions that culture is the distinctive characteristics, including values, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors shared by a group, a region, a people group, a country, a social group, or an organization. This means that churches have their own cultures too. And that means that Central, for instance, has its own culture too, okay? So the values that we have, the attitudes, beliefs, behaviors are shared by a group. The same author, Tina Horst, affirms that the most crucial characteristic of a culture to understand is at the internal level of cultural values, beliefs, and norms powers the external customs, manners, and behaviors that we see and experience. Okay, so let me illustrate this. This is a cultural iceberg by Gary Weaver. And he says, this is what you see. But if you really knew me, all this is under. Okay. Then he says, there's a surface culture, behaviors, words, customs, traditions. And there's also a deep culture, beliefs, values, assumptions, thought processes. And we can even go farther than that, trying to explain. Okay, this is what he says. And I know the letters are too small. Let me read some of these. Let me make it larger. For instance, he has here on the top food, right here, food, flags, festivals, fashion, holidays, music, performances, dances, games, arts and crafts, literature, language. This is the surface culture. But then we have what he calls the deep culture, and there's a lot of letters right here. Let me read some of them. Communication, styles, and rules, okay? Facial expressions, eye contact, gestures, personal space, touching or no touching, body language, tone of voice, handling and displaying emotions, conversational patterns in different social situations. And then he moves to say also notions of courtesy and manners, friendship, leadership, modesty, beauty, concepts of self, time, past and future, fairness and justice, roles related to age, sex, class, family, attitudes towards elders, adolescents, dependents, rules, speculations, work, authority, cooperation versus competition, relationships with animals, age, sin, death, approaches to religion, marriage, raising children, decision-making, and problem-solving. All this is in the deep culture. No wonder why so many times we just cannot understand ourselves. And it is hard to live in a multicultural world. And to illustrate, let me just give you, as I come from the Hispanic culture, you know, Latino culture, let me mention some of the values, differences in values with the predominant culture, what is called the American culture. For instance, the concept of family. Many times, and I don't want to make generalizations because there's no 100%, but many times in the predominant culture, the family is seen as a nuclear family. Mom, dad, 2 kids, and the dog or the cat. You know, and then you go to see the Latino culture, and it's interesting because I have some good friends who are chaplains, and they say if they're called to an emergency, and they say if I arrive to the waiting room and there's 25 people there, I know that this is a Hispanic family because they brought everybody, you know, the extended family, the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, everybody's there, okay? Close friends, compadres, what we call, you know, what is the translation for that? Like, for instance, the mother of my son-in-law's mi comadre, okay? That kinds of relationships, okay? Greetings, shake hands or hugs. Predominant culture, Latino culture, kiss and hugs, okay? And it's important to know this when we go to other cultures. You know, there are cultures that they kiss on both sides and even 3 times, okay? And that's totally acceptable. Cultures where men kiss each other, you know, so that's totally acceptable in their culture. Another one, predominant culture is more individualistic, and Latino culture is more communal, okay? And this brings some challenges, as we know, with since we're here in a seminary, with issues of knowledge, because many times in these cultures, knowledge belongs to everybody, okay? Comfort, very interesting when I visit, friends who belong more to this side. It's like they want you to be comfortable, When I'm in Mexico, the values that we need to be together. Like, for instance, in Christmas, it doesn't matter where you're going to sleep, in a couch, on the floor, on a cot, but the issues that we need to be all together in the same house, okay? Another one, physical space. Some cultures tend to be more separated, and some cultures are more together, okay? And they feel very comfortable being together. The use of time also, predominant culture, 9 a.m. sharp, and it's sharp, okay? It's 9 a.m. And Latino culture, okay, I'll see you at 9 or 9:15, and it's totally, when I'm in Mexico, for instance, sometimes I'm running to be there at 9 o'clock, and then I remember, oh, it can be 9 or 9:15. And there's other cultures that is even longer than that, okay? 9 to 9:30, and you're perfectly on time any minute when you arrive, within that window of time. Spiritual practices, many times in the predominant culture you hear, I will think about you. In Hispanic culture, we say, voy a orar por ti, I will pray for you, okay? Which probably is the same thing, it's just different way of expressing spiritual practices. So in order to enter the world of the other person and to hopefully truly enjoy the joys of a multicultural world, we need to recognize and know as much as we can the other culture before we enter in that culture, okay? But also there are some theological principles, I think, that we need to apply as Christians. We need to see the other person as created in the image of God, okay? The Bible is very clear about that. We are all human beings. That's one of the marks that we have as human beings. We are all created in the image of God, and that's what gives us value and dignity, okay? So we need to see the other person with the same value and dignity that I give to myself and my group. Because sometimes we think, well, the ones who look like me are the best ones, or are the norm, okay? And the other ones are the abnormal, okay? Also, I need to enter the world of the other one, recognizing that I'm a limited human being with a limited vision of the world. And that's a major, major issue, because we think sometimes that everybody thinks like me, that everybody speaks like me, that everybody sees the world in the way that I see it. And go back again to what I was mentioning earlier about the deep culture, okay? Because the way that someone dresses, or that they eat, or that festivals, dances, things like that are very clear to the eye. We can see that. But the deeper culture is a lot harder to see. So we need to recognize that God created us as limited human beings. Now, of course, as human beings, we don't like that. We don't like to think that we are limited and that our vision is limited. Culture doesn't help either. They tell us all the time that if you have this black whatever credit card, you are without limits. Or that if you wear this kind of jeans, you are without limits. So they try to tell us that, if you drive this big truck in Texas, you are without limits, okay? But But it's not true. That's a huge temptation that we have. Okay, huge temptation to think I don't have any limits. So my vision is the vision that everybody should have. My values are the values that everybody should have. But no, we enter the world and we were created in that way. God created us as limited human beings. And when God finished creation, according to the last verse of Genesis, God looked back and said, wow, I really like everything that I have done. So it was okay. That's not part of the fall, that we're limited human beings. We were limited human beings since the beginning. That's part of our nature. But it's very hard to accept that. So what happens then when I encounter the one who is different than me? It's very easy to say, oh, they are inferior because they don't think like me, because they don't look like me, because they don't speak like me. They don't believe like me. So they have to be less than me and my group. And then, that leads us then to sexism and classism and all the isms, basically, because we think that the other one is less because of age or class or, language, color of skin, all these differences that in reality are there to be celebrated, these differences. These are the joys of living in a multicultural world. God invites us to celebrate diversity. So, according to the same author, Tina Hurst, she says that she shares these leadership values in a multicultural setting. As we engage in different cultures, she says character and integrity are super important in all the cultures. Okay. So as we try to move into a different world, basically, integrity is important. It's a very important value that is valued basically in all cultures. We need to enter also as leaders with humility. And again, recognizing that my vision is limited, the way that I see the world is limited. So I can learn, when we encounter the other one, the different, we have two options. We may feel threatened by the other one, and then we start to say they're inferior, or we can say, wow, I can learn from them. I can enrich my life and start asking questions. How do you see God? How do you raise your family? How do you do this? How do you do that? And celebrate the differences and learn from that. Horst also mentions that sacrifice. It requires sacrifice to be in a multicultural setting, which all of us recognize. Sometimes when we travel, and I just went to an international trip. Probably I should not say this because it is recording. So anyway, I will skip that example. But it requires sacrifice. It requires sacrifice, okay? Because we're going to see different things. We're going to have different meals. We're going to have different ways of greeting people. Maybe they're going to be crossing our boundaries in terms of a space. I remember one time I was speaking in a Latin American country, and I finished speaking, and there were these 50 women, and all of them wanted to kiss me. And I felt uncomfortable with that. So I spoke 3 times, and the 3 times they had to come and kiss me, okay? So sometimes there's this, and it would be very unpolite to not allow them to do that. So it requires, and it may be more sacrifices than just receiving 50 kisses by different 50 women, there might be more sacrifices than that, okay? Flexibility also, because things may not go exactly as you were thinking. Like, for instance, issues of time, issues of, again, my personal boundaries with how I'm being touched, okay? And here I'm not talking about sexual harassment, anything like that, just things that are common in a culture, okay? That for them are the most normal thing. Use of time, you arrive in a place on time and they tell you, oh no, people are just arriving, we'll start in 45 minutes, okay? And that's their use of time. Tina says also love, 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 okay? Because we know that love always will take us very far. Genuine love, okay? Compassion for ourselves, okay? Because sometimes we'll make a lot of mistakes when we are in another culture. So compassion for ourselves, for the other one, perhaps, and also just have fun. When we make all these mistakes, we have two options: the option of getting very upset with ourselves, or the option of laughing at ourselves. So I recommend the second one, okay? And the golden rule, I will also add, apply the golden rule to everything that we do. In everything, do to others as you would have them do to you, for this is the law and the prophets. Matthew 7:12. Just treat the other one in the way that you want to be treated. Okay, I think that's an ethical rule that applies in all settings, and certainly it applies in multicultural settings. If we enter the world of the other person following these values and characteristics, we will be able to face the challenges of a multicultural world in a more constructive way, okay? And when I use the word constructive, I was kind of hesitant. We should not do this a transactional relationship where I'm always thinking, what am I going to get? It's constructive in the nice sense, in a nurturing way. And in consequence, if we do that, we will be able to enjoy more the joys of our multicultural world. So as a conclusion, as we immerse ourselves in our multicultural world, let's continue following our chandelier, the Holy Trinity. God the Creator who loves diversity and equality, God the Son who shows us the way, and God the Holy Spirit who empowers us in our lives and ministries. And here, the empowerment of the Holy Spirit is so important because sometimes this is just hard. It's just hard. So we need to be empowered by the Holy Spirit as we do that. So let me stop sharing and let's have some conversation now.
Well, Nora, as you were talking, I was thinking I had two examples that came to my mind that are recent examples. For commencement, we're planning commencement for May 2023. And as we look at the space we're going to be using, it's more limited, so we can't have as many people. And when we were talking through that, we all kind of came to the conclusion we have to remember that some of our graduates are from Myanmar and they bring everyone with them.
Right.
Last year we had one group, they're like 25 for one graduate. So how do we convey to them space is limited and bring your closest when all of them are the closest?
Right.
That's just one of those things that you don't think about as a American, thinking about, they'll just bring their spouse or their parents, but they bring their church and they bring their friends because that's their circle.
Right. Yes. So probably you need to get a larger venue for the graduation.
Well, we're hoping some people. Well, we'll see how it works out. Yeah.
Or maybe have the graduation with limited number of people coming, and then a reception where everybody can come, or something like that.
Yeah. So we've had those discussions, but it just hadn't occurred to me when we found the place and secured it that we should think about not just, everyone bringing 4 people at the most, but some people may bring 20 because that's their custom and culture. And the other thing, as you were talking, reminded me, I was in a meeting recently. We're in the midst of a hiring process, and our consultant that we're working with reminded us that in the end, we can't base the hiring on age or gender or any of those qualities that, across the lines of legality. And one of our Korean faculty who's on that search committee said, Korea, we respect our elders. So it's hard for me to separate thinking about, we want this position to be someone who's older because that would bring more respect. And I just thought, we think in very different terms of age when it comes to processes like that.
Right. Yes. Yes. In some cultures, older people are really respected, and in other cultures are like, you're useless, basically. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's helpful.
I can echo what Pam just said. In Asian context, I think, age usually gets respect sometimes automatically, but then if that person doesn't act his or her age, and also constantly, shows lack of maturity, then although they might show, respect in his presence or in her presence, they might be chewing that person out in the back. So I guess, age should definitely come with, maturity and also wisdom as well. And one thing that I noticed, and something that is kind of quite reaffirming, is the fact that there are different concepts or different uses of time. And, Latino culture and Asian culture, we tend to value events and relationship more than the time or being punctual. I think in the biblical culture, there's a more orientation toward events and relationships than being punctual. I think, even Christ himself, he was more event oriented, more relationship or people oriented. So sometimes he didn't care that much about being punctual. So, in the past, there was a concept called Korean time in Korea many years ago. Now in Korea is being more westernized or Americanized. So there's a little more, awareness of being punctual. But in the past, Korean time meant, being at least being late for 30 minutes or so, and that was okay. Just like, in Latino culture, 15 minutes, late, that's okay.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I have found that is very, very important is for me to know in which culture I'm moving as much as possible. Okay. If I'm going to be in a culture where 9 o'clock is sharp, I better be there at 9 o'clock.
That's right.
Because this whole thing of, I'm not in Mexico and I'm not with a Hispanic group. So it is very important as leaders, I think, to gain awareness of the world that we are entering.
That's right.
In the same way, when a person is used to 9 o'clock sharp, if they are entering a world that is 9:15, not to be judging, they are so late and they are irresponsible, this or that. I think we need to be able, as multicultural leaders, to be able to discern the world that we are entering. And not only in the value of time, in many values. So, and it's hard, John, I understand, because we have, like, for instance, someone like you and me, we have to be switching all the time.
Yeah.
Switching gears all the time to see in which world we woke up this morning.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nora, thank you for doing this, such important work that you're presenting. Can you talk about, or is there a stance multiculturally or in Latino culture about nature and creation and the environment? Because when I was looking at the chandelier in your example, which was a very good example, thank you, I was seeing gravity in nature and how we're all grounded and belong in that sense, less so to the house being crooked, but how nature is still the thing that is our axis and writes us and directs where we can and can't go. And so I found that aspect to it to be interesting. Is there anything there that resonates with being a multicultural leader or a Latino culture perspective?
The thing that I'm thinking right now, and I'm not sure if I'm going in the right direction or not, but I'm thinking about something very practical, recycling, okay, to taking care of nature, of the environment. And unfortunately, it goes back to economic issues, okay? So countries that are more wealthy, if I can use that word, have given more importance, I think, to this, culturally speaking. In many places, this idea of recycling, for instance, to take care of the nature, they don't even pay attention to that because they have a lot more immediate, if you tell me my kids are going to die in, the kids of my kids are going to die in 100 years or 200 years because of the pollution in the world. I don't care so much about that. I may die tomorrow because of violence and political issues and military issues in my country. So it goes back, I guess, to a lot of economic relationships, survival, economic issues, survival issues. I'm sure all cultures have a different way to relate to nature, and when for instance, in Mexico, I think there's a very good relationship with nature. There's a lot of mountains. Mexico is a rich country in terms of having, geographically speaking, it has everything, the ocean, rivers, woods, everything. So people appreciate that. But, there's this other layer of what is survival in a culture. And I'm not going to worry about what is going to happen in 100 years. I'm going to worry about having food tomorrow in my house. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking also that you were saying that the Trinity was what was grounding and giving you a sense of direction. And I'm trying to even see it maybe broader, that it's really the createdness of our earth and
Right.
the pieces that inform that.
And perhaps what I was trying to say also, it was the commonalities that we have as human beings. We want to have food on our tables. We want to have education for our kids. We want to have peace. We want to have progress. We want to have clean water. All these things that sometimes we just take for granted. Okay. And for some people, these are more immediate things. Although it's getting closer, for instance, the issue of water. Just this week in the news, or last week, but it was very recent, within the last 10 days, they were mentioning in a certain area in, I believe it was Arizona, that area, that they're running out of water. I don't know if you saw it in the news.
They did, yes, they cut off water. There's no water.
Yeah, there's no water. It's Scottsdale, I think. So I'm from Monterrey, Mexico. It was last summer I was there. And this is a very progressive city. It has, I don't know how many million, 2-3 million people living there. But there was no water. Literally, there was no water. Okay. In my sister's house, we were very lucky to have water for 6 or 7 hours during the day. So you kind of plan your day, you do laundry, cook, get your shower, all that kinds of things. Okay. But there were other people, some CLLI people, Pam, some of the women there, they had not had a drop of water in 30 days. And we're talking about middle-class neighborhoods. So yeah, it's an issue that we need to pay attention to. And thank you for making the connection with this, with the creation. Yeah, it's very, very important. Any other questions or comments? We're getting close to the end of the time.
I thought the list you provided from Tina Schultz-Horst, I hope I got that correct, of humility and sacrifice, all of that list. So I jotted that down. That's really helpful to think about. Because at Central, we live in a very multicultural universe. And I know Heidi teaches classes, and on the first day of class, I'm sure that the people who come into class, you have to navigate with them all of these different, expectations around how you write papers and what's appropriate to say in class and the amount of time that you talk as a student versus how much you listen. Just all those kind of cultural issues that probably you were not trained for doing your doctoral work, that I wasn't trained for, that we never even considered, because our education was so grounded in American culture. And I think for me, that's one of the beauties of Central, is that it stretches us and challenges us and helps us to realize our own limits and the beauty of having other people who teach us and can be our teachers. So I appreciate that list very much. And I'll have to write that in a more legible handwriting on a card so I can keep it with me.
Pam, I would love to see Nora's lists about how the different slides she had, where she had family and time and those sorts of expectations in American versus a Latino. I would like to see us further that and have it be Korean and Burmese, so we could educate one another about how it's so different. I imagine the Americans are the only ones who have this opinion, and all the other cultures are very similar in terms of family and extended and being together and not being separate or comfortable. I think that would be really helpful for a lot of our adjuncts and for one another. I think that would be really interesting.
Right. And then, as we teach, how much do you stretch the other person, and this whole idea of sacrifice and understanding, but also, keeping the integrity of the classroom, and the responsibilities, due dates, all these kinds of things, because very easily we can go to one extreme or the other one. And that's why compassion is important there. But integrity is important, and character is important, and all that. So, but I agree. I think it would be very good to have a list like that one, so that we can understand a little bit better the cultures that are represented in the classroom. So yeah, I like that. I like that.
That might be even a good thing, Heidi, at the beginning of class, just to say, time. What is your perception of time?
Yeah.
Right.
For your students, and just listen as they talk about, are they 9:15, 9 sharp, or 10 or 11?
Yeah. Sorry, class is right at 6, but other than that.
Yeah. And again, the whole idea that you are entering a world, a different world, and that as leaders, we need to know which kind of world we are entering, like dress code, for instance, because sometimes, in 2010, I was invited to speak in Egypt in a conference for women. So I always ask for the dress code. So they told me long sleeves and long skirts, okay? But they didn't mention the color. So I arrived with bright yellow and bright pink, and all the women were dressed in blue, dark blue, and black. So, and I was entering their world, but nobody told me about the colors. So you know, we have a responsibility as leaders when we are entering a certain world to find out the most that we can about that culture.
Hi, can I talk?
Of course, yes.
Because I'm on my phone, so I couldn't type, and I'm holding my baby. So, oh,
Hi.
oh. So anyway, what I was going to ask, as a pastor, I serve a church that is very, very diverse. We have over 10, maybe 10 to 12 different nationalities. So I was wondering what advice that you have for a pastor to navigate all of that. And as you can tell, I'm from another country as well. I'm from Haiti, but I serve an American church, a church that used to be Euro-American church, and now it's very diverse with people from other countries and also African-American from here.
You know, one of the things that Tina Hertz mentions in 3 times, love, love, love. You know, we try to love the people with all the expressions of love, you know. Love is patient, you know, going back to 1 Corinthians 13. It's not violent. I think we would never go wrong with that. Now, more practical ways, you know, all the expressions of love, I think, compassion, humility, everything that love entails, and then knowledge. Try to know as much as you can, and then try to find common ground, you know, because if your service is at 11 and people say, well, my culture starts at 11:30, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. How can we enter in a common world where we find some understanding, hopefully? And I know that in church is hard, you know, because, you know, if you are in your job, well, you set the rules and you say, well, we'll start working at 9 and everybody has to be here at 9. And if you're not there at 9, then eventually you will be in probation and you will get fired, I guess. But when we're in churches, we cannot do that. So we need to find some common ground with the other people and try to know as much as we can as their values. But thank you for your question. That's a very good question.
And thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think we're just about at time. It's 12:59, and I wanted to take just a minute to say thank you, Nora, for always being a good teacher for us, helping us to ask better questions and to think more broadly about the world we live in. You've done that for me for so long, and I'm grateful to be able to share you with all these other friends as you teach all of us. And we will be posting this on the website. Craig will do that. And if I can figure out how to get the recording to him, I told Nora she's getting second team since Jessica has stepped away from this position. I'm a second teamer and not nearly as graceful or as technologically advanced as Jessica. But thank you so much, Nora, for joining us and for your patience with me and for, yeah.
Thank you for the invitation. It was good. And thank you for the questions and the comments.
Thank you. Thank you. Next month, Nathan Hughley will be our guest at Lunch and Learn, and he's going to talk about spiritual practices and spiritual discipline. And I think most all of you know Nathan. He is our student success director and has been at Central for 7 or 8 years now. So I look forward to seeing you then. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.